I'd like to call this meeting to order. First off, land acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional lands of Acadia First Nation, part of Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Item number 3, playing of O Canada. Thank you, everyone. And I neglected to say at the very beginning of this meeting, today's date is May 25th, 2022, and this is the regular council meeting. Item number 4, approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions? Councillor Nick Hilton, you have the floor.
Under new business, can we add the June regular council meeting schedule?
Okay, we'll add that item 8.4. June council meeting schedule. I do believe there's a conflict. I know the reason why you're asking for that. Is there any more additions or deletions to the agenda? If not, I'd accept a motion to approve as amended. Moved by Councillor Daniel Allen, seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. Motion on the floor to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item number 5, if there's any declarations of conflict of interest, please notify me and I'll make sure that your name is recorded in the meeting minutes. Item number 6, approval of the minutes. What is council's pleasure? Councillor Durkee.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes as shown in the agenda. There's many of them.
Yeah, that is good.
Yep.
So a motion on the floor to approve the minutes as circulated. I'm sorry, that's not exactly what you said, was it, Councillor?
That's fine.
Moved by Councillor Patty Durkee, seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion to approve the minutes as circulated. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. If someone's wondering why we didn't list them all off, there's 11 different meetings that we had over the months of April and May. Item number 7, 2022-2023 budget.
So, Mr. Chair, in the package, as the Director of Finance is coming down to the table, in the package is a sheet provided per your instructions for the resolutions regarding the rates prior to the presentation of the budget detail.
So we're going to do the rates first. Item 7.1.1, rates, 1.1.1, residential and resource tax rates. What is the wishes of council? Councillor Patty Durkee.
Be it resolved that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth approves the following rates for the 2022-23 fiscal year. Residential and resource tax rate at $1.18 per $100 of assessment, and commercial tax rate at $2.17 per 100 of assessment, and special assessment rate per sewer rate at $89.66 per unit equivalent per quarter.
A motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Nick Hilton. Is there any discussion on that motion? Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham, you have the floor.
I'd just like to thank staff, certainly the preparation of the budget and the conversation that we had around the budget, and I was relatively pleased that we haven't had to change the rate, and I think that's good news. There has been some degree of construction and development in the municipality, so that's helped, and of course our overall assessed value has risen, so we're able to do some positive things in the municipality and still keep the rate the way it was. So I'm obviously in favor of the rates as Councillor Durkee has read.
Is there any more discussion on that motion? Is there any more discussion on that motion on the floor? If not, I'll have a couple words. As usual, Council has really dug deep and looked deep in the numbers. To be very honest, with the looming inflation that's been going on, I was actually very concerned over what would happen with the rates and with all the rising prices of everything from fuel to groceries to just daily items. I'm extremely pleased to see that we are keeping both the residential and the commercial tax rates the same as last year. It wasn't easy, but we've had a few things going in our favor. We've had unprecedented sale of homes in the area for people moving back. Some people may or may not know that a lot of homes are capped in the area, but when a home is sold, the cap comes off. The prices of homes have gone up. The deed transfer tax has certainly been a big help in this year's budget for not raising it, because we're getting so much more with all the activity in the area. But to all the new residents in the area, welcome. And on behalf of council, I'm very pleased to support this budget that's been placed in front of us. Is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, I'd entertain a question. Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. All right, we've done item 7.1 through 3. Item 7.1.1.4 in regards to fire rates. What is the pleasure of council? Councillor Patty Durkee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth approves the following fire rates for the 2022-23 fiscal year. Fire rate for Carlton at 11 cents per $100 of assessment. Fire rate for Port Maitland at 14 cents per $100 of assessment. Fire rate for Yarmouth at 16 cents per $100 of assessment. Fire rate for Lakes and District at 17 cents per $100 of assessment. Fire rate for Lake Vaughan at 15 cents per 100 of assessment. Fire rate for Valley and District at 8 cents per $100 of assessment. And fire rate for Kemptville at 11 cents per $100 of assessment.
Motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Nick Hilton. Is there any discussion on that motion? I will ask staff this question. Has the fire rates changed? Even the fire rates are set by the ratepayers meetings in the fires district. Have any been changed this year? No, so none of those have changed as well. Any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 7.1.2, draft operating budget.
All right,
Mr. Greg Shea, you have the floor.
thank you, Mr. Warden. So what we'll do is just take a walk down through our operating plan budget for the year, and we'll present to you some medium, high-level numbers and some of the categories that make up the entire budget, and we're going to start in the revenue section. So our taxes on our assessable property this year is budgeted for $10,960,619. Our special assessments, which is our sewer rates, is budgeted at $288,314. Business properties is $340,566. And other taxes is budgeted to be $413,666. So the total revenues from taxes is budgeted to be $12,003,165. Grants in lieu of taxes, $37,000. Services to other governments is budgeted to be $477,350. Other revenue from own sources is $989,829. We've budgeted unconditional transfers from other governments to be $152,235, and conditional transfers from other levels of government at $604,715, and we budgeted in a transfer from other reserves of $260,000. So the total non-tax revenues are budgeted at $2,521,129, and the total revenues in the operating statement are budgeted to be $14,524,294. On the expenditure side of our operating statement in general government services, we have legislative at $321,062. We have general administration at $1,191,565. Financial management, $57,000. Taxation, $332,099. And other general government services are budgeted at $340,751. So the total operating budget category for general government services is $2,242,477. In protective services, we have protective services, our CMP and corrections of $1,354,527. Fire protection is $1,105,136. Emergency measures is $43,513. Other protective services is $391,386, and the budget for animal and pest control is $29,745. So the total in the all protective services category is $2,924,307. In transportation services, road transportation, $501,518. Street lighting, $65,500. Public works, $538,327. So that makes the total for transportation and public works at $1,105,345. Environmental health services, sewage collection and waste disposal and recyclables processing, $1,285,956. And then in environmental health, public health services and development, we have public health and welfare, we have $209,427. We have environmental development services and planning of $141,740. Industrial parks, $89,272, and other environmental development services of $383,904. So in the environmental development category of our budget, we have a total of $614,916. The recreation budget for the year is $800,850. Culture and heritage, $35,310. And then we get into fiscal services. So fiscal services, we have debt service, debt charges, budgeted to be $107,358. Principal payments on long-term debt at $210,392. Transfers to own reserves, funds, and agencies is $1,448,705. And conditional transfers to other governments is budgeted to be $3,441,715. $486,286. And finally, extraordinary and special items or contingency for unforeseens at $25,000. So total fiscal services for the year are budgeted at $5,277,741. That rounds out the expense side of your operational budget, and the total operating expenditures are budgeted to be $14,496,329. And that will yield the municipality of a narrow surplus at the end of the year of $27,965. So that's your operating plan, through a financial lens.
Is there any questions for Greg? Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I asked this last year, and just for the public's interest, through the chair to Greg, could you explain how much of our operating expense is, and I know I don't use the right word because dictated I know isn't the right word, but that is maybe downloaded isn't the right word either, but it's passed on to us that we have no control over. Can you maybe break that down for us and the public?
There's a little bit of subjectivity into deciding the extent of your discretion you have over your operational expenditures. Some are very clearly delivered to you by other levels of government and other legislative requirements. Some things are fully at your discretion, and you have a complete decision ability to make during the course of the year or during budget process on what you're going to spend. And then there's this big gray area in the middle. So we do a little exercise in the shop just to kind of get a sense of the magnitude of the dollars that are kind of in those three major categories. So generally speaking, there's 53+% of your operating budget that we can determine is pretty much out of your hands and is delivered to you by other agencies and other authorities and other commitments. What we consider full discretion is only around about 10% of your actual operating budget. And in the middle, you have this gray area of around 36 or 37% where we call some limited discretion. It's the amount of level of service you want to provide. It needs to be provided, but what level do you want to provide it at and things like that. So I would say in excess of 50% of the budget is pretty much beyond your hands.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there any more questions for Greg? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the draft operating budget. Deputy Warden?
Yes, I'll move that the municipality district of Yarmouth approve the draft operating budget is circulated.
Motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Could we specify that for the 2022, 2023? Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. Is there any discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. Entertain a question. Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Moving on, item 7.1.3, draft capital investment plan. You have the floor.
I can take the floor for that if you like. I'm not sure the level of detail you want to get into. I think you're all been provided with copies of the draft capital investment plan. But the total plan of action for the year, the multiple projects that are on the books, amounts to $4,679,294. That's a combination of funding through gas tax funds and regular capital reserve funds.
So what is the wishes of council? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2022-2023 draft capital investment plan. Deputy Warden? Who did I turn on? Deputy Warden?
I'll move that the municipality district of Yarmouth approve the draft capital projects priority plan for the 2022-23 fiscal is circulated.
Motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Is there any discussion on that motion? Once again, I apologize, Councillor Hurlbert. You're right in the glare. No, there's glares on these partitions. Deputy Warden, you have the floor.
Yeah, I mean, for folks that haven't seen the draft plan, it is pretty ambitious, and I think it's really a testament of the council's work with staff and others, and the collaboration among really the municipal units. We've got the Mariners Center on there. There's ARCOM. There are Cape Fourcheux. There's lots of recreation trail work, sidewalks, sewer system upgrades. So really, I think this stands us in good stead for developing the future, having people move here and enjoy the municipality of Yarmouth, and I think it sets us up for some growth in the future, and I think that growth will lead to the continuation of being able to keep our tax rate stable. So for those reasons, I'm pleased.
Any more discussion? Question being called on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 7.1.4, confirmation of municipal grants. Madam CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in your package tonight are the grants per your instructions for this season, and we're entertaining your prerogative on approving these grants as presented tonight.
Councillor Sherry Hurlbert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make the motion that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth approve the grant total as presented.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Hurlbert, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Mr. Shea said, we have 10% of our budget is full control, and this is part of that 10%. So for the community organizations that apply and meet the criteria, this is a process that I look forward to every year, and I welcome the applications from our residents and our community organizations, and look forward to continuing to work with them in the future.
Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
Yeah, I'll just add to what Councillor Hurlbert had to say. It really is quite amazing, the community involvement that we have in Yarmouth, the municipality of Yarmouth and surrounding areas. I mean, when folks get a chance to view the final list of organizations that we've been able to help in a small way, they're really built on volunteerism for the most part, and help our tourism sector and just help improve the quality of life in the municipality just of Yarmouth. So, really amazed with the requests that come in, and it's great stuff. I mean, everyone's deserving of every cent that they get, essentially, maybe even more. So, those are my comments. Thanks.
I see no more microphones flashing, but I do have a question in regards to a late request that we had from the Yarmouth Shark Scramble. That's included in here, correct? Oh, so it is item number 27. I guess I need better reading glasses. All right, is there any more discussion? Question being called on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Well, thank you very much, Greg. It's been a trying year. As always, I was a little afraid, as I stated earlier, about you can't call it recession, but the inflation that's been going on lately with different things. I was actually quite afraid of this year, but as a council and staff, we all pulled it through at the end of the day, even with our aggressive capital plans and stuff like that. So, yeah, thank you very much, Greg.
We have a very full agenda, there's no doubt about that, so that's good.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure to serve.
Councillor Hilton.
Thank you. Sorry, I guess I've been sitting here thinking about it. I just want to make one comment as part of that municipal grants program. How much and he's gone now, was to finish paying off the splash park. Did we pay off both parts of that? We did, so I just wanted to point that out, that we've now paid our portion of the Yarmouth Splash Park, and that there's a sod turning this Friday at 12:30, I think. So really looking forward to that project moving forward, and I think that was well done by all partners, so thank you very much.
Apparently, Councillor Hilton, you've been reading the warden's report that I didn't circulate and I had written down. That's quite all right. Okay, item 7.2, initial boundary review report, presentation by our municipal planner. So, I'll give you two fine gentlemen the floor as soon as you turn your microphone on.
So, C&D Community Design team has been working on the boundary review for a couple months now. Hopefully everyone here has had time to review the initial findings report that was on tonight's agenda. The adjustment of the boundary is to ensure population and elector parity as required by the NSUARB is quite a technical process, and our junior planner here, Raleigh King, has been leading that for us, and he's really gotten into all the figures, numbers, and different communities and how they will affect different scenarios that could lead to better parity. So with all that said, I'm going to let him give you the presentation on the initial findings so far, and look forward to hearing what you guys think.
All right. Just one second, I get my own up. All right, so this is our initial findings report for our boundary review. You can take us to the next slide. Oh, do I? Okay, sweet. Perfect. All right, so we're going to start out today with our introduction. Then we're going to do a bit of background on the District of Yarmouth itself. Then we're going to get into our scenarios. We have two scenario options. One that's going to adjust the boundaries so that we can remain with the number of councillors and the warden system. Our second option is going to be for transitioning to a warden system with one less district, 6 districts. Then we're going to go over our public engagement process moving forward and our next steps. So all municipalities since 2006 are required to do a boundary review every 8 years. The Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board regulates the process. They have a specific set of guidelines. One that's going to come up often in this is a 10% ratio to average electors for each district. Throughout this process, we're trying to take careful consideration to making sure that communities are contained within districts that are central to their polling locations, maybe not necessarily dividing them along road boundaries, something that gives them some sort of geographical continuity, especially when we look at them on the maps, and the elections data. So this right now is a map of the last boundaries established in 2014. The numbers with this are where the districts are at now in terms of numbers. If you want to check on your report, it's on page 12. Sorry, I should have said that first. So just as a general overview, we have 7 districts. The population of the District of Yarmouth is about 10,000, and that's an increase from 2016 by about 200 people. That increase represents about a 2% growth, which is more than we've seen in the past. And overall, the the nation's growth rate is about 5%, and the provincial growth rate is also about 5%. So we're seeing a lot of growth from that sort of national growth rate. So again, that 10% parity district per district is a number that's going to come up a lot as we go through the whole process. So on average, the number of electors in Nova Scotia is 7. When you compare it to other comparable populations to the District of Yarmouth, we see that the councillors here are serving a similar number of constituents to the average. The average number that we came out with is 1309, and the District of Yarmouth's council is actually serving 1438, so it's a bit higher. So this is actually our map and table of the parity that the districts have as is right now. The most notable ones that kind of stand out here are District 5 with Hebron and Dayton, and District 2. District 2 has fallen out of parity because it hasn't grown as much in population as the other districts, where District 5 having Hebron and Dayton, which are the largest communities, is the largest or over parity rate. Both of them are 13% either way. So those were the two districts that I focused on the most with adjusting the boundaries. Just in the last 6 years, there's been 13 newly constructed roads. The majority of the roads have been constructed in District 1. District 4 has also seen a good amount of road construction over the last 6 years. Both districts have seen a growth of nearly 14% in the last 6 years, or 8 years. So we were also looking into any acclamations that have happened over the last 8 years. John Cunningham has acclaimed his position since 2007, and in order to collect electors' data for that district, District 1, we went to Elections Nova Scotia and collected their statistics data, and from there we were able to discern that there was 1,281 electors in District 1. So the last election was held electronically, so we weren't using polling locations, but we do have a polling locations map on page 18 for previous polling locations. We had mobile polling locations for the last municipal elections, so that could also change as well. The major reasoning for the polling districts locations is for like community centers that might stand out in the boundary review process. So if we, I think you guys have the map circulated, it's on page 18 if you want to look on it. We started by establishing our two different scenarios. As I mentioned before, the first scenario is for maintaining status quo with 7 councillors and just adjusting borders for district parity. And the second scenario is for a mayor system with 6 districts and 6 councillors. So yeah, again, that's maintaining status quo. So the first boundary adjustment involves moving Layton Street from District 5 to District 3. In doing so, we also suggested that Mood Road containing Captain Lane, Jedediah Road, and Harris Lake Road would also move into District 2 to balance the two districts. That would bring Hebron down to 9.7% and placing it within the average. District 2 would be adjusted to 5.6% below the average, which would put it within parity guidelines for the NSUARB. One of my reasonings for moving Mood Road into District 2 was to encompass all of the Somerville community into District 2. So that's our map of the boundary adjustments, and this includes our numbers for the district's parity and the adjusted number of electors. This would put all of them within the 10% parity guideline for the NSUARB. This wouldn't change anything about District 1, 4, 6, or 7 as is. They would remain the same as the last boundary review. Our second scenario is the mayor system with 6 councilors. Once the mayor system is chosen, the municipality can't revert back to the warden system. So it's something that has to be carefully considered. Council requested that we investigate this as an option. So the mayor system typically the mayor typically works as a figurehead much the same way as the warden, but the mayor is elected at large by the population. The mayor is usually somebody who takes on a little bit more commitment with the public than a warden typically does. And they're also typically compensated a little bit more than a warden is on average. The switch to the 6-district system would involve changing the average number of electors to 1,442, which would change some of the district's boundaries inevitably. The mayor system is, we would switch to the, if you transition to the mayor system, typically the NSUARB would like the number of districts to remain the same during the transition, but our suggestion was requested to have one less district, which we can justify to the NSUARB. This is the map that we came out with. I believe it's on page 22 for the mayor system. District 5 would remain much the same way as it would. District 2 and 7 would pretty much merge. District 3 would encompass more of Brooklyn. And District 4 would start to encompass some of what is District 1 now. If we go into it a little bit more in depth, District 1 will be relinquishing Norwood, Lake Annis, Brazil, and Gardner Mills as communities to District 4. District 2 would, as I mentioned previously, merge with District 7, so it would gain the communities of Melbourne, Arcadia, Central Chebogue, Rockville, Chebogue Point, Pinckney's Point, Kelly's Cove, and the Acadia First Nations community. District 3 will remain much the same, but it will assume all of Brooklyn as a community. District 4, as I mentioned previously, will assume Brenton, as well as Norwood, Lake Annis, Brazil Lake, and Gardner Mills. District 5, in relinquishing the entirety of the community of Brooklyn to District 3, would move Maple Drive, Park Drive, and the remainder of Brooklyn to District 3. District 7 will assume Sand Beach, and District 6 will assume Sand Beach, and District 7 will no longer exist. So this is kind of our table for our dates for public engagement. This public engagement portion is going to include this meeting, but also the creation of boundary review webpage. We're going to do mail-out packages. We're hoping to plan 1 or 2 public meetings, optional either way, newspaper ads, online survey, and of course, we're going to do the final public hearing for the NSU-ARB. So after receiving some of the feedback information, I came up with another parity scenario just because Sherry had contacted me about the space in between Layton Street for the boundary adjustment for status quo between Layton Street and Highway 304. So I kind of did, I didn't necessarily do the numbers adjusting that, but it was also with the adjustment of Mood Road as well into District 2, and how it wasn't necessarily going to work for continuity of the Somerville community, as some of that road is the Deerfield community. So I did another table of the boundary adjustment. We didn't make a map for it yet, but this would be to adjust District 1 partly, with Tusket Falls, Rainerton up to Ellenwood Drive being transitioned to District 2 instead, and District 3 remaining as is in that portion. That adjustment would also fall within parity guidelines. With Layton Street to Highway 304, that's an adjustment that would actually work more in favor of District 5 falling lower with parity and having more space to grow because they're the largest communities. So I think moving forward, we will make that adjustment to the map for the boundaries so that it works more within parity. That's scenario 1, the status quo scenario. Yeah, so our next steps are going to be the public engagement portion. As I mentioned, we're going to do an online survey, newspaper ads, mail-out packages, website content, and we're going to confirm dates for public meetings and the public hearing. Any information or additional requests that the council or staff may need, we'll have as we move forward through this process. Thank you.
All right, any questions, comments? Deputy Warden?
Well, thank you for all the hard work. I did review the document in detail, and as counselor for District 5, I never like to see any of my catchment or any of my riding, or district rather, I guess the proper word, taken by another district. But I do understand that Hebron Dayton's growing, and this happens from time to time. And again, had I been doing the work, I would have probably arrived at similar conclusions. So I did look at it. It looked to be sound, both scenarios. So I think for me, the important thing is the public consultation piece, so that they get an opportunity, because they're the electors and they're the people that are important. And I'd certainly looking forward to hearing what the public has to say about each of the scenarios and then which one they favor. So thanks again.
Yeah.
Great work.
Councillor Sherry Hurlbert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our planners for this work, and thank you for taking my comments into consideration. When I read that, and I emailed Riley, and I said, does that mean Layton Street just kind of stands on its own, separate from, and just as a note, it's Highway 340, not Highway 304?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so from the Tinkham Road to, the end of the Tinkham Road to Layton Street would have still been District 5, but Layton Street kind of as an island of itself would have been District 3, and I thought, well, to decrease District 5, it would have made sense just to kind of keep it moving, so thanks,
Totally.
thanks for that.
It was a good observation.
And I feel like if we know District 5 is growing, and I, understand Deputy Warden's comments, you never want to, decrease the size geographically, but if District 5 is at, all that almost 10%, it really makes sense to try to, and in scenario 2, you said that it was, the biggest growing, so,
Yeah.
for me, it just makes sense to kind of get it down somewhat so that we're not up at 13 or 14% in, 2 or 3 years after that. I have a couple of questions about the public consultation, because that really is where we need to hear from our residents. The mail-out packages, do you know what that's going to comprise of? Like, are there going to be specific questions?
Yeah, it'll be a few questions in a survey. I believe Caroline's already created an
Okay.
online survey.
Okay,
I don't know
perfect.
if it's for all of you to review yet, but
That's fine. And the comment card, it said something about a comment card at the public meeting that people could, so that would be along the same kinds of questions that the survey would entail? Right, okay. And it says newspaper ad. Do we know what newspaper that will be? Is that-
that's mostly to advertise the public meetings and hearings.
So we normally, well, I shouldn't say normally, I'm not sure how many people actually subscribe to a print copy of a newspaper. So
Yeah.
will we think outside, I know that we sometimes use the Clare Shopper and Lobster Bay Shopper for things, so would that possibly be an option as well? Okay. And the other thing I would be remiss to say, we just need to make sure that wherever we have these, if the public hearing is here, it's great for accessibility, but if we are having, it somewhere else, we need to just make sure that wherever those locations are for the public to come in and give us feedback, that they can get here and we get the feedback we need. So thank you very much.
Any more comments, questions? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I think this is great. I am actually counselor for District 2, so I have the smallest community, and, but making everything the parity is a great idea. I'm just looking forward to hearing what the people have to say. I'd like it to be smooth. I agree with Councillor Hurlbert. I don't want to break parts off and try and, I do have a question about, because when we go out to the public, I know a lot of people wonder, a lot of times some things come down to money. And I see that it says the compensation differences for the mayor and warden. I was reading, and it says that we could, that it would, the mayor system would provide a cost savings. And I'm just trying to, I try to do the math in my head, and I want to make sure that that is actually true. I was just trying to do the math, and I'm not trying to knock anybody's math, but I guess if you go to 6 councilors and one mayor, there's still 7 people. So I'm just trying to do the math in my head, because it states that the mayor usually makes more than a warden would make, and we're still paying 7, so where is the cost saving?
I think it's in reducing the counselor.
It's not a cost savings for total cost. It's a little confusing the way it's worded. So the total cost is higher. What we're speaking to is that in choosing to go with 6 counselors instead of 7, which is NSUARB recommendation, there's a cost savings there to help make up for that difference. So you're still at a higher total cost.
So it still would end up being, it's still, if we went to a Mero system, would cost more than,
If
we
went to the mayor system, it would cost more?
Is that wrong?
Madam CEO?
Sure. So the way the Municipal Government Act is worded right now, outside of an application to the Utility and Review Board, if council wanted to adopt a mayor system, you would have to add an additional person to the table. But by looking at continuing to work with 7 elected officials under a different governance system, you're saving money compared to the other way you can move to a mayor system.
okay.
Because you're already making an application to the UARB under your boundary review, if, in order to adopt a mayor system, but have 6 districts, you need permission from the UARB.
So
Tomorrow, you could decide to adopt a mayor system and add a body, and you have that right under the legislation.
So my concern is going out to the public, when we do the public engagement, I think this portion should be clear, because the difference is for a mayor versus warden system in the report. And I'm just trying to make sure, I want it to be clear that public understand, because, today's day and age, money is concerned.
Yep.
And, we have 7 people sitting around this table that get compensated to be here, and I just don't want it to be misled that if we go to a mayor system, that all of a sudden we'll be saving money, because there's still, even after we apply to UARB, there still will be, if they approve it, there will still be 7 people sitting around this table.
That's right. And the other thing I'd add, our C&D Community Design, they've done some research, and they have some information about, some trends they see. But council always determines the remuneration of the elected officials around the table. So just because across the province, it may look like mayors are paid more than wardens, that doesn't mean that you don't still have fiscal control over the cost of your legislative expenses. So yeah, we can definitely make sure that the message is clear that by applying, that's the wrong word, by considering a mayor system with 6 districts through a special application to the UARB, that is cheaper than considering a mayor system with 7 districts. That's what's cheaper. So we'll
Right.
make sure that that language is clear.
And they're going to want the comparison to the warden system as well.
It's hard for us to provide costs, because council sets the remuneration every year, but we can, we can show what those costs are now for travel
Yeah.
and all those sorts of things, and, provide the data we do have.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one more thing through you to our planners. Could you send a copy maybe to staff of that revision for option 1 that wasn't included in our original package, just so that we have it and that the public would have it available?
Yeah, that will be available for
Okay.
the public
Perfect,
hearings.
thank you.
Any more questions? As warden, I will say this much. One thing that I do hear quite often, it would be for a mayoral system. So going through the public consultation and things like that, we're going to find out if it's just a few years that I'm getting or if it's a whole bunch. So I'm indifferent. For me, this is a public-led process, and whatever the public wishes to see is hopefully what they'll get. So, thank you much, guys. Appreciate, sorry, Councillor Durkee, I missed you.
Thank you,
have the floor.
Mr. Chair. It was me at the last minute, so don't worry about it. I just want to say I'm really pleased that we're actually looking at both options and not just doing a boundary review as we are for 7, and that we're going out to the public and saying, what do you really want? I think I'm really happy that, we're looking into it. Change is good sometimes.
All right, I guess you're free to go. Thank you very much, guys, for both the public participation in this presentation on your initial boundary review report. It's a job that I'll tell you that I wouldn't want. And I also must apologize for being acclaimed since 2007. Like sort of threw a monkey wrench into stuff like that.
We've
I
seen
like
some
to
other
either
stuff.
think that, number one, I'm either doing a good job, or number two, people don't want to run. I'm kind of hoping that it's the number one thing, so. Okay.
I will take the opportunity just to remind everybody that when that initial findings report went out, we sent feedback forms to all the counselors. So we'll edit the initial findings report to show to include the new changes, which Sherry Hurlbert helped us arrive at. And then we should be able to redistribute it from there, and we'll send that feedback form out again. So if you think of any more concerns or just thoughts, anything, any questions, hopefully when you get that, give it another read, think about it, and take that opportunity to fill that form out, because it all helps us get a better understanding of the districts that you guys know better than anyone.
Deputy Warden?
Yeah, I do have one question, and I'm not quite certain because the map wasn't there in this. We talked about that second scenario under, the second option or scenario under option or scenario one that you talked about, just the redrawing of the boundaries as opposed to the mayoral system. That there was another one you thought about, and it dealt with Layton Street. So what were the changes? So if Layton Street in that second scenario would remain, non-mayoral scenario would remain in District 5, and would there be any other adjustment to District 5? or-
Are you talking about the adjustment that I was talking about with Sherry?
Yes.
So it's that at this moment for that boundary review suggestion, it's for Layton Street to go into District 3. But what Sherry pointed out was the space between Highway 340 up to Layton Street should be included there. So I'm thinking we should move forward with that as the boundary suggestion.
Okay, so, I see. So it'd be a little bit extra, a little bit more.
A little more, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Just to make it contiguous, I see, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand the piece, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
No, I
yeah.
understand what you're saying now. Yeah. No, it's good, thanks.
Okay. That item's done. Item 7.3, second reading of rezoning of Broadwood Road, Pleasant Valley, PID number 902-98118 for tourism cabins. What is the wishes of council? Deputy Warden, you have the floor.
Well, I started before, but I'll finish now. How's that sound? So I'll move that the municipality district of Yarmouth rezone PID 902-98118 from rural development to rural commercial, and it's concerning Broadwood Road, Pleasant Valley, and that's the second reading.
A motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Sherry Hurlbert. Is there any discussion? Question being called on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Point of process to the CAO. What happens with this motion now? Is it directly complete?
We file with the province. I do believe there's a 14-day appeal
Yes.
period, but it's not one of the changes that require the approval of the Director of Planning. We just file it with the province.
Thank you. Item number 7.4, Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities and Municipal Provincial Negotiations. Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham, you had asked to have this on the agenda, and there's also a news article in there. You have the floor.
Yes, and I was looking through the news one day and came across this story, and Amanda McDougall's the mayor of CBRM and also the president of the NSFM. And anyway, the article talks about Ms. McDougall wanting CBRM to have a special process with the province because for its unique needs and priorities. And I don't know how that got in this story, because really it started off talking about the NSFM and really, so it's kind of tough. And I understand sometimes these conflicts do take place because oftentimes, you know, a mayor or warden is president of the NSFM, but also has their mayoral or warden responsibilities and so forth. So anyway, I'd like to make a motion that we write the NSFM, and I'm not saying anything untoward or wrong went on, just if they could look at I guess if they could take another look at, you know, ways to avoid situations where the media portray this as being, you know, somehow having the president at odds with maybe their duties as president and with their unit. So there is that potential to be seen as a conflict. I'm not saying anything untoward went on, but maybe if they could just review that and to avoid these types of things, because the public's watching and sometimes these things there can be confusion around them. So I'll move that we just alert the NSFM to this potential issue and see if they can do anything about it. I'm not sure if they can, actually, but I wanted to bring it close.
A motion on the floor, do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Sherry Hurlbert. Deputy Warden, you still have the floor, wish to speak?
No, my apologies.
Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Deputy Warden and I were on the same page when I read that on May 11th. I thought, is this an article that started out from NSFM and then kind of merged in? And, you know, when you're being interviewed by a reporter, sometime, you know, things can go a little awry. But I too had concerns to ensure that, you know, we as NSFM members are represented and, you know, things work for the good of all NSFM members, and, you know, that there isn't that perception that, you know, someone is, you know, trying to get something more than, you know, for them than for the rest of the province. So I think actually the day that I read this, I mentioned to CAO Brooks that it was concerning, and she said it's already been asked to be put on the agenda. So thank you, Deputy Warden.
Councillor Patty Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do agree with my fellow councillors. However, that being said, it's often the media that takes things out of context, and I know this has happened in the past. So I think it's just for clarification purposes at this point to find out what actually happened here, because I don't want to make an assumption, but I do believe that's probably what happened. And it is. Being on the board, it is hard. I know that for NSFM, that role becomes first and foremost of what happens across the province. So, yeah, there's a little, certainly a problem with this article.
I don't disagree with any of the comments made out there. It's very hard when you're representing an organization and then you represent a municipality, and it's easy to see how those two things, but this is for clarification and stuff like that, so I'm in full support of the motion that's on the floor. Any other comments? Question being called on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 7.5, first reading of tax reduction bylaw T-083-22. You all have that in your package. What is the wishes of council? Councillor Durkee, your mic's on. You wish to... Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'll move that the municipality of District of Yarmouth approve first reading of tax reduction bylaw T-083-22 is circulated.
A motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Deputy Warden, would you mind taking over the chair for the next item, please? Must excuse myself.
Okay, we have, the next agenda item is recommendations from Committee of the Whole. It's under new business, item 8.1, Council Procedural Policy, C-028-19. What's the wishes of council? No, I got the wrong one. This one. Which one is it?
Just next, right there.
Oh, Councilor Hurlbert, sorry.
Are they both on? Sorry. I'll make the motion that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth approve Council Procedural Policy C-028-19.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Hurlbert. Do I have a seconder? Councilor Hilton seconds the motion. All those in favor signify, is there any conversation, discussion about it first off? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Council, and I'll return the chair to Warden Cunningham.
Thank you very much, Deputy Warden. Item 8.1.2, correspondence to the province regarding non-resident property tax removed. You all have that in your package. That was a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole. However, we all know that the province has rescinded for the most part that. So what is the wishes of council in this regards? Deputy Warden.
Well, given what you've said, I don't think there's anything that we really need to send the letter about, I think. Oh, my apologies.
Madam CEO,
Got a
what's the
comment?
Yeah, so
procedure on that?
Well, the recommendation was to write a letter of congratulations to the province in being responsive. So you're just
Oh,
ratifying that. That's what this one was.
My
Yep.
apologies, but I
that's-
remember
Yep.
now from
We
Kendall, yeah.
we did.
We wrote the initial
We
letter.
already lobbied against it, yep, and this was a recommendation to congratulate the province
Right.
on being responsive.
So I'll move that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth send a letter to the province congratulating them on their recent decision to remove the non-residential property tax and satisfaction that the municipality and residents' concerns were heard.
Motion on the floor, to have a seconder, seconded by Councillor Durkee. Is there any discussion on that motion? Question being called on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. I don't know why that was, I was thinking that that one was for the concern about having it there. I guess I heard a lot of concerns over it, that's for sure. Item 8.1.3, naming of a municipal road, Hebron Business Park cul-de-sac name. Councillor Patty Durkee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion that we approve the naming of the Hebron Business Park cul-de-sac that leads east from County Crescent to FedEx Court.
Motion on the floor, to have a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Nick Hilton. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 8.1.4, Veterans Memorial Banners. You all have the recommendation from Committee in the Whole in front of you. What is the wishes of the council? Councillor Patty Durkee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that request that staff research the economics of creating a banner program honoring the veterans throughout the municipality.
Motion on the floor. I have a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Nick Hilton. I seen Councillor Nick Hilton. Okay, a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on that motion? I think this is a good start to a concern that Mr. Cyril LeBlanc brought to my attention. He actually emailed me, and I didn't respond yet because it was only a Committee of the Whole recommendation. Provided this the motion on the floor passes, I'll get back to him. So, any more discussion? Hearing none, entertain a question.
Question.
Question being called on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 8.1.5, fireworks. You'll have that in your package. What is the wishes of council? Councillor Hilton.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve staff to create a communications campaign on the noise bylaw N-050-03 and fire ban supporting the responsible use of fireworks. That was doctored.
A motion on the floor to a seconder, seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushing. Is there any discussion on that motion? Question being called on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary. Motion carried unanimously. Item 8.1.6, request for decision accessibility audit. Sometimes it's hard having teeth in your mouth. My apologies for that, a little slip of the tongue. Accessibility audit. Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth award Jensen Hughes a contract for $26,700 plus HST to perform accessibility audits as required in the request for proposals.
Motion on the floor, do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. Any discussion on that motion? Question being called on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 8.2, meeting with ministers. As some of you watching may or may not know, we had met with Minister John Lohr, and there was a lot of questions that we had, and he wasn't actually the best person to talk to, so therefore I would entertain a motion that the Municipality District of Yarmouth write Ministers Kim Maslin, Minister of Public Works, Minister Michelle Thompson, Minister of Health and Wellness, and Premier Tim Houston to have a meeting with council. Moved by Councillor Daniel Allen. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. There's a motion on the floor. Any discussion on that? First of all, thank you very much, councillors. It was very interesting to meet. We met with Minister John Lohr via Zoom, and as always, whenever we meet with a minister, we always seem to have a lot of questions, and a few things that were brought up is in regards to things that were outside of his purview with Public Works and Department of Health and Wellness. So I think it's important that we speak with those ministers as soon as possible, and this is a direct letter to all of them. And of course, have a meeting with the Premier, we'd certainly appreciate. So, if there's no more discussion on the motion on the floor, I'd entertain a question. Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 8.3, letter of thanks to Minister John Lohr. I also had asked to have this added to the agenda. Minister Lohr, as you all know, we met with him last week. Yeah, last week, and it was very informative. We had a lot of questions. Myself and the CEO developed an agenda, and we didn't get all the way through it because, of course, he's a minister for almost 51 municipalities across the province of Nova Scotia, but we certainly appreciate his time. Therefore, I'd entertain a motion to send Minister John Lohr a letter of thanks for meeting with us. Moved by Councillor Nick Hilton, seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. Motion on the floor. All those in favor, Deputy Warden.
I mean, I'd just like to also comment that he did bring a lot of information our way, but it was certainly a two-way exchange of ideas, and for that, I'm appreciative. So it's nice to have the minister meet us so soon and you know, have a good heartfelt conversation and a two-way dialogue. So it was excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any more discussion on that motion? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 8.4, June meeting schedule. Councillor Nick Hilton, you had asked to have this added to the agenda. I'm going to turn the floor over to you, even though I know what it's for.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just our June regular council meeting falls on the same night as the graduation of Yarmouth High School, so I'm going to excuse myself, but saying that, I feel like there's others at the table that may have that same conflict, and we may want to discuss moving the council meeting, depending on numbers. I'm good either way.
Well, usually, thank you, Councillor Hilton. Usually, I, as a warden, go make presentations for our bursaries that evening. So I would love to attend something like that. It's something that I always enjoyed. I've attended it for years, even though it's really hot sitting up on that stage. I would certainly entertain moving the date of the regular council meeting for that day. Or regular or committee of the whole? Council. Councillor Allen?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hilton, for bringing this up. I had my light on, and you got there before I did. I, as well as Councillor Hilton, are going to be attending that. I have one daughter. She's graduating from high school, and I don't think a truckload of horses are going to keep me from going there to see that. So if there's any way that council could see their way to either maybe reschedule, which would be great, or if there's only two of us, obviously, we have enough confidence in council to let them get the job done that night.
Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
I will make the motion that we move regular council to June 30? Is there, oh,
The 29th would be the
Twen-
next Wednesday.
yeah, the 29th, which is the last Wednesday, so we would have to move it to the 28th or the 30th?
No, the fourth Wednesday is the 22nd.
Oh,
Fourth. Okay, graduation's on the 29th. Yeah, council's on the 22nd.
okay, I have a comment since we're on the discussion of June meeting. We have our committee of the whole on June 9th, and we also have the NSFM virtual special meeting that takes place from 3 to 5 on June 9th. So that would be a conflict with our committee of the whole.
I think there's an error in the calendar, Councillor Hurlbert. I think your NSFM members meeting is June the 6th.
The email that we received Monday says June 9th, but maybe it is an error.
I'll double check.
Okay.
I
And if
will
not, we
definitely
can
double check.
move some stuff around there.
Yep.
Okay, are we clear? So there's no action's going to need to be taken.
Maybe for committee of the whole.
Maybe for the committee of the whole, but you can't verify that until later. So we'll certainly notify the public if there's a meeting date change for that. All right, no action required on that. Item number 9, correspondence. For action, there's item 9.1.1, launch of the selection process for the host municipality on the 44th Finale de Jeux de KD in 2025. There's no action required to this. I had sent an email back. I do believe that this for action item was sent to us in error, where we are not a designated Acadian municipality. And also, I CC'd my colleagues Yvonne and Danny Muse in both the municipalities of Clare and Argyle and their CAOs with a response email to this, what I got. So I have responded, and I do believe I got a response. It's thanking me for pointing that out, because I do believe this may have been sent to us in error. Usually the municipality district of Argyle or the municipality district of Clare or any other Acadian riding in the province of Nova Scotia would get letters like that, so I don't think there's any more action needed. Okay, item number 9.2 for information. NSFM membership dues and the Tri-Counties Women's Center for celebrating 20 years of service. Councillor Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a congratulatory note to the Tri-County Women's Center. They've sent us a letter inviting us to help them celebrate their 20-year anniversary on June the 2nd, and I think that's a great accomplishment for a nonprofit community organization. They help tremendous amount of people over the course of their 20 years, and I look forward to popping in and taking part in their celebration.
I do have a question for you, councillors. Did you also receive that email? Yes. Sometimes I get emails like that I'm unsure if it's also attached to you, so therefore I forward them to the CAO to have them added to the agenda. Okay, item 10, reports. CAO's report. You all have that in your package? Deputy Warden.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to draw attention to to our capital plan, 5.2 million, and we talked about that earlier on in the evening, and just really operational and capital sense, how much work staff is doing and how much work council is doing with staff, to make things even better than they are today in the municipality district of Yarmouth. So, it's a very, very heady list of things that staff and council is involved in, and I think we can all be proud of that, and proud of what we're going to accomplish, over the next couple of years. So I'll move that on the recommendation of Councillor Hilton. I'll move that the Municipal District of Yarmouth Council accept the Chief Administrator's report, May 25th, 2022.
Moved by Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Nick Hilton. Councillor Lauren Cushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to thank the CAO and staff for the design drawings that are submitted to the province for approval under the Heritage Designation. Approval was received. Final tender documents are being prepared by Varcon and expect that the municipality will issue tender in the second quarter of the fiscal, with a construction following the Labor Day weekend. That's for the fog alarm look-offs. Thank you for all the hard work.
Any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Question being called on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Warden's report. This is the second time you didn't receive a written report from me. It's only because the first time I really enjoyed doing it the way I did it. That made a lot of sense, didn't it? Yeah, I did a verbal report, and actually I rather enjoyed that. As you may or may not know, I've attended my usual duties. I attended 14 different meetings this past month. However, a lot of things that I've done a little bit differently is I've attended a bunch of community events, annual general meetings. May the 17th, I attended the TREPA annual general meeting, and I was the guest speaker there, speaking on our municipal planning strategies and land use bylaws and Plan MODI and all that other good stuff. So it was very interesting. That's the first opportunity I had since being your warden to go out and speak to a community group since the COVID restrictions were lifted. Something else that I was involved in was Send a Kid to Camp Day, Camp Peniel. We had that out in the Carleton area, and I'm pleased to report, and I had permission to announce this, that day alone, we raised $7,660. So thank you to everybody who participated in that. It was a resounding success, beyond my wildest dreams, and I really thank you to all the residents from not only the Carleton area but surrounding communities, because donations come in from more than just the Carleton area. They came from outside the municipality, from people from the municipality district of Clare, Digby, municipality Argyle. They come from all over, town of Yarmouth. They come from all over. So thank you very much to the residents. Something else that's going to be happening this week on Friday at 12:30, the Splash Park sod turning. That was mentioned earlier. And I got looking back in my emails, and I neglected to forward it to the CAO to have it added to our agenda for information. Every once in a while, something like that gets by me, but I had written it down before that that's something that I wanted to mention because it's something that the community also, and the community volunteers also spent a lot of time with this project in fundraising and dreaming of the whole thing. So it's been going on for a long time, and it's glad to see that it's finally happening. And I do believe that the proposed opening is going to be for sometime in August to have that up and running. So that's another great thing that's happening in our community, and it's something that the kids sorely wanted and sorely need. It's going to be great, and I'll be there in my wetsuit joining in. Also, we on the tourism side, we had a visitor here, the Silver Sea cruise liner, 57-meter luxury liner in expedition class, visited our parks. Unfortunately, it was very foggy that day, and but the people had a wonderful time. I'd like to thank Councillor Lauren Cushing for being out to the Cape Fish property for joining them. And something that I wanted to mention from Xavier Gonzalez, the expedition coordinator from there, he sent a note. He wanted to thank everyone for an incredible welcome and wished that every port worked as smoothly as we did today in Yarmouth. I'm very pleased to hear that we made an impression on a ship out of Miami, 157 meter. Unfortunately, it was foggy and we couldn't get any pictures. So I'm going to, this time, turn it over the floor to Councillor Cushing, if you don't mind, just giving Council a real brief rundown on possibly how many visitors visited Cape Fichu and maybe where they're from or something like that. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Our actual numbers that visited Cape Fichu, when I got there, they were scattered all in different spots. But I will say this: one of the staff members from the Cape Fichu staff members there, Allison Randall, she was given a tour guide. She didn't see me at first because she was given and explaining all about the Cape Fichu and all the different things that happened. And the people were very interested in what she was saying, and she did a really good job. And to say it was a foggy day, it was a, use the proper word, darn wet, foggy day. And it was, and the people enjoyed it, and I passed out some pins and whatnot that I had with me. And I mentioned to a couple of them that, you know, it is a really nice view from here, but it's foggy today and whatnot. And then my response back was, hey, that's the weather. They wasn't worried about it. They just enjoyed themselves, but they were on the Leif Erikson Trail. They were going on the tour with Miss Randall, and they were just everywhere. So it was very enjoyable to see. And just to continue on, today the warden and I met with MP Chris Donchema at the Cape Fichu Lighthouse, and while we're there, we're just, we're talking and going on and just showing things around. And it was interesting. I always had pens with me, and I was giving them out. This May the 25th, we had a couple from Switzerland. We had a couple from Alberta, a couple from Mountain, another couple who have moved here to the Yarmouth area from Ottawa, and then we had a lady who had her grandchildren with her, and they were from Alberta. So it was pretty interesting to see this time of year how many people was coming. And talking to Jennifer, our manager down there, she said that she had a tour of 14 foreign exchange students already, and what they did is, I don't know if people are familiar with, but on the Leif Erikson Trail down below, there's a signpost there with all different directions of where they're from, right? And they had painted up new signs that were from Mexico and from all over the world. So they get involved. So that was very good, right? And she was also mentioning about the Chamber of Commerce. So Rebecca brought several students studying in the health down there for a tour and whatnot. So I was pretty impressed. So I believe with the popularity of the Cape Fechoux and the lighthouse, and some of them even were climbing the light today too. It was good to see that we're reaching out to people from all over the world, which is a good promotion and a good atmosphere for us. And actually, the couple from Mountain asked me where a good place to go eat, and I won't name the place that it was because I don't want to be saying that I'm benefiting one place over the other. But after I told them where to go get some good fish and stuff like this, and my wife Linda was with me, and after I talked about it, I started getting hungry. I said, let's go to supper too. When we get there, they were there too, so we had a great chat there again. So they want to know they're moving on to Digby and where to stay and what to do. So they were here. They're going to Digby. So they're, it was it's good to see so early in the season that we've got so many people coming already from all over the world. So it was good. So it was great. And of course we had a good chat with Chris, and there was lots of pictures taken on his I forget what the guy's name was now, but so it was good. And it was good to see the staff out doing some work and whatnot, and keeping things up and going. And I will give a little shot in this one. Linda and I, we stopped for lunch at what's it called now? The Keeper's Kitchen, I think it's still called that, I believe. And we had some seafood chowder, and it was good, very good. And the lady there was very polite. She's very efficient, very fast, and it was good. And they've got some good souvenirs in their shop. As you can see, I'm wearing some of the stuff today, and the hat and whatnot. So, and I guess it's being sold quite a bit already, so people are buying it up. So, good job by Jennifer and her crew down there, and thanks for council support and promoting the Cape Fechoux, and good to see that things are happening, and we're looking forward to that Fog Alarm building look-off coming up, so it should be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. You forgot the people from Saskatchewan as well.
Oh, Saskatchewan, that's right. Those other ones, yeah.
So be warned, councillors, I may call on you, since I'm changing the format of the warden's report. You never know when I'm going to call. Thank you very much for that. So that's the warden's report. Item number 10.3, legal entities. You all have written reports in your package. Is there anyone that wants to add anything in there? Councillor Patty Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll report, it's interesting that you should mention about the Yarmouth and Acadian Shores Tourism Association, because I was going to report on the arrival of the cruise ship as well. I happened to wear two hats that day when the cruise ship arrived, as a vice chair of the Yarmouth and Acadian Shores Tourism Association, and as a volunteer at the Harbourfront Museum. And I have to say, it was absolutely thrilling to have people from all over the world, Germany, California, Spain, arrive in our town and be running around the town, which they did. It was just, it felt so good. They, again, like everyone else has said, they loved it. They could not get over the welcome that we provided, the fact that YASTA was there on the waterfront with flags and directing everybody, and how well everything was organized. The group that went to on the wine and beer tours was in one direction, and another group went to Cape Fechoux, and another group, there were two groups that went on a walking tour downtown, and then there was another group who just wandered around, and they came back. In the end, we had coffee in the Killam building for them, and they came back and they said, "You have a lovely town," and they were really impressed. So it made us all feel really good that we had some great things to offer them, and we're keeping our fingers crossed us that they're going to be back. We just held this week the annual general meeting for YASTA, and there's a report attached to that. Things are going extremely well. As always, they have a great team, and they're doing an amazing job promoting. One of the kudos to Neil, I have to say, he's doing a great job leveraging funds from other departments through tourism and other provincial government departments. So, you know, whatever we put through and we contribute to some of the programs, he's using that to get more money from other organizations. So we're very, very fortunate in the way things have been handled. Yes, we're getting grants for digital programs, and we're also getting TMAC. So we'll be having the Travel Media Association of Canada in June, and if anybody has free time to volunteer, please let Nick know, and I'm drawing a blank right now as the dates, but I know that Neil needs extra volunteers. If you can, you know, offer a couple hours a day, whatever you can offer, whether you're driving people here, there, everywhere, it would be great. And it's going to be an amazing function for our community, our region. And while I'm here, yesterday was the Western Regional Enterprise Network Liaison and Oversight Committee meeting. The REN presented their new strategic plan, which is basically a refresh of the plan that they'd already been working on, which, so the board and the LOC were there together, and we saw their plan, and we all agreed that they were moving in the right direction. We ended up having some difficulty getting a quorum. So thanks to our CAO for facilitating getting a couple of people online, and our meeting ended up lasting 7 minutes and 29 seconds. Poor Lauren didn't know what hit him. We just moved through it quickly, but those who are regulars knew what we were discussing, and so it went very quickly, and we were able to get Eddie and Nickerson and Chris out to their Barrington meeting on time. So it went really well. It was great to get back together again, but what we realize is when you have people from all around the region that are meeting, because there are 7 municipalities with the REN, that it makes it hard to get people together. So I think Zoom might be the way to go in the future for that type of organization, but all good. Thanks.
Before you hang up your mic, turn yourself back on, I got a question in regards to, I'm going to go back to the YASTA report. You were talking about a meeting in June. Was that one with the Silver Sea executives from the cruise line industry?
Yeah.
Is that the one you're talking about?
No, the TMAC? No.
It's not the same, so there's two?
No, there's two. There is a group that's coming from the Silver Seas group. They're coming and doing a familiarization tour, but it's the TMAC group, which is a much bigger conference, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's good to see that Yarmouth is getting recognized for...
We are
for the
becoming
small
a
cruise ships. It's
destination.
something that YASTA, when I was back in chair, that was trying to promote ourselves as a cruise ship, a small cruise ship destination. So it's good to see that people are taking an interest, and the people that's come here, as Councillor Lauren Cushion had mentioned, are really enjoying themselves. So yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Very excited for this season.
This cruise ship that we had was new. We'd never had them before.
Yeah.
And I think we impressed them. So, you know, Yarmouth, we know how to put out the hospitality.
Absolutely.
Although we couldn't see the cruise yet.
All right, is there any more legal entities reports? Nope, I don't see none. Moving on.
Oh, sorry. Next one.
Moving on, advisories. Councillor Durkee, I think, no. Once again, I did not see Councillor Sherry Hurlbert's microphone, but she's turned on. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to report, last Thursday, we had the CAO from Reachability, Tova Sherman, come in and give some training to council and one of our citizen reps on the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and it's my understanding she also did some training with staff the 2 days prior to that. wasn't really quite sure what to expect. You think, accessibility, we have all these rules and regulations, and I don't think I've laughed so hard in a training in the last 2 years as I laughed with Tova. It was absolutely phenomenal. One of, lots of takeaways, tons of takeaways. She gave us a quiz, and I failed miserably, and it was things, on disabilities around the world and tracking medications and it was very eye-opening. And the other thing that I really loved was an A to Z basic common sense actions to ensure dignity for all. And there is a sentence for every single letter of the alphabet. Things like always respect a person's choices and independence. So just because someone is a wheelchair user doesn't mean that they need you to push them. We need to be asking them what they need from us, So lots of things, and it's common sense, but we know how common sense can be for some people. So that, for me, the day was very enjoyable. She was very entertaining, but also very, informative and, educated me on a lot of things that I didn't already know. So I thank you to council for, approving that and moving accessibility forward.
Absolutely, I had a lot of fun at that too, learned a lot. Councillor Patty Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm reporting on the Doctor Recruitment and Retention Committee. I just want to make everybody aware that our committee and staff are continuing to work extremely hard to improve health, doctors, getting doctors in the region. It's not an easy task. We are competing with the world. Essentially, there's a shortage in the world. And what we're looking at right now of prime importance is actually changing the way family doctors function. It's gone are the days where a doctor would take on 5,000 patients. It just doesn't happen anymore. New doctors want a variety of activities. They're willing to take on 800, not 5,000 patients. But they also want to be involved in other things like working in emergency and working in the hospital in other areas. So what we're all looking at now is kind of changing the model of family doctors and how they function. It's happened in other areas of Nova Scotia, and I think it's extremely important that we look at it. And basically the new model is called the patient medical home. And it's a collaborative care model where you have a couple of doctors working out of a clinic, you'd have a nurse practitioner, you'd have a physiotherapy, so you'd have a whole combination, an area where someone could go to get all the different sorts of treatment that they require. So I think you'll see more of that happening in our area. That we're hoping. We've got some things in the works that will hopefully work on that. And once people have to understand, once Nova Scotia Health signs those agreements and contracts with new doctors, they're hands off after that. They sign the agreement. It's up to us as communities to work on the retention. And that's not always easy because they're getting offers from all over the place. So we may be coming back with an ask at some point once we see how things unfold in the next couple of months. That's it.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Is there any more reports and advisory? Moving on, ad hoc. Hearing none, the next item is item number 11, in camera. However, we have come very close to our 2-hour time limit for a regular council meeting, so I need a motion to extend our council meeting by 1 hour. I think that should be sufficient. Councillor Durkee, motion moved by Councillor Durkee, seconded by Councillor Nick Hilton to extend the meeting by 1 hour. This is in regards to our council procedural policy. I'll spit it out here in a second. C-028-19. That's the reason why we need to do that. So motion on the floor to extend the meeting by 1 hour. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. I need a motion now to go into camera. Moved by Counselor Sherry Hurlbert, seconded by Counselor Lauren Cushion to go into camera. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Council.